sounds good to me, because I'm definitely looking forward to this presentation today. So today our presentation is, marketing safety, leadership marketing and safety is the title. And, obviously that's something that I think we all can be better at, especially here in Las Vegas. Safety is not in the many or the organizations, and I can really count for in the hospitality industry. Safety, we're not in the executive, in the board, on the ops committees and, things where it really should be when you're talking about these big organizations. So, getting some information, from Hayim's presentation today is going to be very valuable to myself included. And so I'm really looking forward to it, and I think you will too. But in saying that, I'd like to introduce Hayim Mizrachi. He's a seasoned executive and keynote speaker and podcast host. He brings a unique blend of industry experience and entrepreneurial insight and leadership applications. So as the CEO, principal, and broker of MDL Group, which is a leading commercial real estate services firm here in Las Vegas, obviously he's going to do many of the things that we can all learn from as safety professionals, like the strategic direction, business operations, and all the other things many things that we can only imagine that he's involved with. So, and he is from Las Vegas, and saying that, I'll turn it over to Hayim and let him take it away. So, welcome.
Thanks you. For coming, Hayim. It's my pleasure. I'm going to try and get the screen share going. You guys can see that.
Nice. Good to go.
Perfect.
Okay. Appreciate the intro. Appreciate Ben for asking me to be here today, and thank you all. If you're open to it, and if you're in a place where you can, it'd be helpful for me if you can turn your camera on, turn your camera on, because it'll help with that nonverbal feedback as I'm kind of going through this. If you're not in a position to, no big deal, but it would help out a bit. So I'll jump in a little bit more, kind of building off of the intro and more about who I am, because it'll lead into what I'm talking about and why. So I was born and raised here in Las Vegas, Green Valley High School, went to UNLV. I have a degree in marketing. This is my family. We also have an Australian Shepherd that we got more recently than when this picture was taken. This is now a few years old. I got exposed to leadership really at a young age in my high school youth group, and kind of kept investing in myself in that regard significantly. For example, I've done some things like Dale Carnegie Institute certifications, a marketing seminar called the Alt MBA. I've been in an organization called Vistage, which is a peer leadership and accountability group, for over 10 years. I've served my industry, the commercial real estate industry, pretty much on every board, CCIM, NAOP, which I served as president of, and I'm very involved as well as a lay leader in the Jewish community here through the Jewish Federation. This is my company, as mentioned. It's MDL Group. I am the CEO now. I came here 12 years ago as a partner and succession to the co-founder. So the company is founded in 1989. What we do is two things: commercial real estate property management. So shopping centers, industrial properties, office buildings, and also owners associations, both industrial and office. We manage those. Along with that comes, as you guys know, a lot of third-party vendor contracting and whatnot. On the brokerage side, it's sales and leasing. As an organization, we're over 55 people. And in September, we launched in the Salt Lake City area as well. This is me. Yes, I ran a few marathons. A few years ago, I started writing a blog, which evolved into a podcast. It's all hosted on my personal site, hayim.com. These are the couple of the podcast episodes I put out. The Nap Breakfast monthly. We put out the audio, as well as the people that you see. It's a sit-down interview process. So I'm up to now episode 69, recording episode 70 this week. If you like what I talk about today, the things that I share, this is where you can find me. You can all my social links are on there, and you can subscribe to this if you'd like to. And we're here to talk about leadership, marketing, and safety. Why and how the ASSP can lead from the front and share the story, the safety story. So here's what you can expect today. The things I'm going to talk about. Safety is undervalued. It was alluded to a second ago. I'm going to share some takeaways on leadership, takeaways on marketing. We'll talk about where safety, leadership, and marketing collide, and we're going to leave a lot of time for Q&A. If you guys need me to slow down or speed up, if you want to pause for questions or clarification, we can do that too. Unless somebody says something, I'm just going to continue going, and then we'll, like I said, leave plenty of time for Q&A and follow-up. So for me, it really starts with a question. I mean, it was just said, is safety undervalued? I did a little bit of research. I talked to Ben about it quite a bit, and just some things that would lead me to think so, and for you guys to maybe feel that is safety is seen as a cost center. It's not in the C-suite. It's really tucked under a different department, be it HR or risk or compliance. The professionals in the field are typecast as the rules people. Rules are made to be broken. You guys are here to uphold the rules. Your success is invisible. This one was a little hard to grasp, but then I kind of came around. If you're doing a good job, no one notices it. In fact, they might even take it for granted. To incidents response versus strategic performance. You guys are obviously on the strategic performance side, but it again only is seen as needed maybe when there is an incident. And this one, Joe Rogan, I've heard him talk about these business acronyms, these corporate acronyms, DEI and ESG, and everyone seems to know what that is. But one of your acronyms, TWH, Total Worker Health, I can't find a headline on this if I tried to. And so, is it undervalued? Is safety as a profession and an industry undervalued? Or are you guys just kind of being drama queens? I don't know. I guess the questions would be, are you getting the respect, the awareness, the recognition, and frankly, the pay that you think that you deserve, and the contributions and the values that you bring to your organizations? If you don't feel that, what do you do about it? What can you do about it? So a little quote from Theodore Roosevelt: you do what you can with what you have where you are. And so we're going to kind of talk about what can you do with what you have and from where you are. So going into takeaways on leadership, I brought this book forward. John Maxwell, very well-known leadership author and speaker. The book, The 360 Leader, Developing Your Influence from Anywhere in the Organization. So you mentioned, you guys aren't in the C-suite typically, but John Maxwell will say leadership is not a title, it's influence. So do you necessarily have to be the chief safety officer to have influence? Or is there another way to get it from wherever you are? So let's kind of look through some of the things that this book talks about. Different ways to lead. This one is no surprise, leading down. This is typically a supervisor to a direct report. I think when people think about leadership, this is typically the model that we think about. If you are in a leadership position, it's you influencing the team. You walk the talk, you develop your people, you balance with care and expectations, provide vision and resources. But that's not the only way to lead. There's also leading up, which is the exact opposite. This is the direct report leading the supervisors, influencing your leaders. And typically you obtain this kind of influence and leadership. You can do this by providing support for the vision, by being a problem solver, bringing energy and initiative. You guys are seeing things on the front lines, and you can really help lead up with some of those things and solutions. There's leading across. This is more influencing your peers. You do this by working shoulder to shoulder, building trust, collaborating, celebrating others' wins. This is one that's often overlooked. but a great way to lead and create influence, and then help without seeking the credit. And then finally, leading yourself. John will say, and I will say, and anyone who's done any kind of self-help work, this is one of the hardest things to do. You do it by investing in yourself, your growth and your learning, putting yourself in a place of alignment where your values are aligned with the work that you're doing. The easy way, take responsibility. Overcoming resistance and imposter syndrome. I put these in here because when you are engaged in anything achievement-wise, it's easy to say, who am I to believe that I can do this? Who am I to believe I deserve this? This is a real thing. It's a real thing for everybody, leaders at any level. So know that if you're experiencing it, you are actually an achiever, because non-performers or low performers don't feel imposter syndrome. So if you feel this, kind of celebrate it quietly. So those are some different ways that John Maxwell talks about leadership and influence. And so the big takeaway here is influence is possible from anywhere in the organization at any level. So shifting over, I'll share some takeaways on marketing. This is Seth Godin. He has written at least 24 bestsellers. Some of the titles include Purple Cow, Tribes, and my favorite title of his, This is Marketing. I mean, only the most brilliant of marketers will write a book and title it This is Marketing, just to let you know how awesome this guy is and how highly I think about him. He's also responsible for inventing the concept of commercial email in the way that we know it. And my favorite was when COVID happened, and every organization I've ever been exposed to in any shape or form sent me a stay safe message. That whole concept of corporate email marketing, Seth Godin invented. And at the same time, he invented the concept of permission-based marketing, which is the opposite of spam. So I obviously hold a lot of weight with Seth and him around marketing. And this is how he defines marketing, which is the act of making change happen by telling a story which resonates with the people you seek to serve. So making change by telling a story to the people, your audience, that you seek to serve. He builds on this through his book called Tribes. And essentially it's to say you don't need permission to lead, which is similar in a way to what John Maxwell talks about. But he talks about what is a tribe. A tribe is a group of people with shared interests or goals. Whether you're a safety professional, whether you're a certified safety professional, the CEO, the COO, the risk mitigator in charge, the person in charge of risk mitigation, you have a shared interest and a shared goal. So what Seth talks about is you can be the leader of that tribe. You don't, again, necessarily have to have that title. So a lot of overlap. Some more takeaways from the book, leaders and movement. You can change and inspire. You can create culture. You can tell stories that spread, build faith and vision, and challenge your followers to act. If you want a bigger budget for what you're doing, maybe this is a way to challenge your followers to act. And once again, he talks about reinforcing this message. You don't need permission to lead. The book I mentioned, This is Marketing. There's really, if this is in a way tactical, when I start to try and execute marketing, these are the questions that Seth poses. Who's it for? What's it for? What is the change you seek to make? Unpacking these a little bit. Who is it for is me doing the work of defining and understanding my audience. Is it, if I'm writing a safety policy, is it the people that are going to be carrying out the policy? Or is it the people in charge of giving me the budget for this policy? Who is this for? And once I know who it's for, what is it for? This is me wrestling and getting clarity around purpose and objectives. And then what is the change I seek to make? Really sitting down and not kidding myself around, am I doing this because I want to be better known? Am I doing it because I'm trying to get a raise or even to get hired? Am I doing this to affect a very specific type of change? So just some things to dance with. Shifting over to another great marketer of our era. This is Gary Vaynerchuk. Just curious if you guys heard of this guy. Has anyone not heard of Gary Vaynerchuk? So Gary Vaynerchuk, thank you. Thanks for your honesty there. He's immigrants, Russian immigrants. His father started working at a liquor shop, eventually bought the liquor shop. And like most immigrants, kids work with their parents. He worked in the liquor shop. Eventually, internet started, and he caught on with internet marketing and really took a neighborhood liquor shop into a $70 million business across the country, and then became a marketer himself and has a marketing company, but has written books, is probably the most prolific user of social media. In fact, when Oprah Winfrey tweeted her first tweet, it was Gary Vaynerchuk who was sitting right next to her to do it. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this concept of currency. The currency of business is attention. And really, marketing is attention. And how do you get people's attention? But I like the way he frames this, is the currency of business is attention. So one of the books that he put out kind of early on, if you get it now, some of the tactics might be a little dated, but the principles of them are true. So he talks about when you get into content creation, which is really creating a marketing message, which is really storytelling. But when we think about, marketing, it's easy to just think about social media. It's not just that, but especially in social media and content creation, we often wait for a perfect moment or a big crescendo event. He has a different approach. He promotes a different approach, which is really document your process, talk about your journey, talk about your day-to-day. Now, this is where imposter syndrome on the leadership side might come up. That's boring. Who am I to think I can do this? Who's going to be interested in this? But he has proven time and again, story after story, where this is the kind of thing that's very interesting for people. This is where you can create a niche and a voice for yourself simply by doing that. I'm going to talk more about a specific tactic on this in a bit. The other thing he talks about, really the cardinal rule of any kind of content creation and really any kind of marketing, is to be authentic. I've been marketing for quite a while now. I am not Gary Vaynerchuk. He's very video heavy. Might be a surprise. I'm not that excited about video. I do it. It's not a natural thing to me. And so for me, he keeps reminding, and for you, just be authentic. You don't have to be a certain type of personality. Just show up as yourself, follow these principles, and your path will present itself. So those are, some of the marketers that I really enjoy, that I follow, that I deploy their tactics on. I sort of looked at how does the industry, the safety industry, market itself currently, and there's some, I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but this is the thing that came to mind. The safety sign is safety is practice here. We've worked X amount of days together before without an incident. I see a lot of these on construction sites. I see them in some of the manufacturing facilities that we have. So let's talk about this. Really, we're talking about, are we good or are we lucky? And then what happens when an incident does happen, when you have to erase the consecutive days without an incident and go back to zero? What's another one? Another poster, a famous poster, safety comes first. We all know that. We all want to go home safe and work together. That's a classic example, but let's kind of break this down. Is this specific? Is this remarkable? No, I would say it's generic. I would say it's kind of forgettable. You sort of walk by these where they're posted and it's just furniture. It blends in. This is not telling a story, and it certainly doesn't connect emotionally. So let me go into some ways that I market myself. Obviously, social media, blogging, podcasting, the personal site that I showed you guys, public speaking, association leadership, and this one might surprise you, snail mail, or internal memos. The reason I'm showing this to you is I want to share the different mediums that are available for marketing. It's not just social media. It's all of these things, and there's probably a few more. These are the ones that I actively do. I'll say there's a medium for every personality type, and I will say that every personality type can actually thrive and flourish in every single one of these mediums. And so I'm going to walk you through just 3 examples of how to use these mediums within the safety industry. So we'll start with social media because I think it's the easiest one to understand. It's probably the one that's most approachable. And I'm picking on Ben because he's not here, but I think it'd be great if he was here so I can pick on him in front of his face a little bit. But Ben, credit to him, uses social media. If you go on his LinkedIn, you could see that he is actively posting, regularly posting, and it's absolutely authentic to who he is. This is one of the posts that I swiped right off of his page. It looks like it was a month ago. He's talking about being honored. Can you guys read this out of curiosity? Is it big enough? Okay. So I won't read it to you, but what this says to somebody is that Ben is service mindset. He's a leader and he's an authority right out of the gate. I don't have to read it. I don't have to know what this association is, or certification is. That's the impression I get. Dig a little further on his LinkedIn and he is certified. He's like a bona fide real dude in this space, not just for a little bit. He didn't just get something. He has a tenure of it. And so I mocked up a post kind of bringing in the things that I talked about, telling your story, documenting your process, and being authentic to yourself and who you are. And so if I were coaching Ben, I would say, hey, Ben, let's do a post like this. When I pursued my certified safety professional designation, what I didn't realize was how much it would sharpen my ability to create real business outcomes. So right there, he's starting to tell a story. And he's interlacing this designation and his process. And so now we're going to tell a real life story on this project. We had a production deadlines and they were tight. The team was tempted to skip equipment checks. Instead of simply saying no, I used a risk assessment framework I learned during my CSP prep. Now he goes into talk about the result. Here's the ROI. For leaders, here is proof that this designation is worth your while. And here's a real life picture of Ben on the job, making that emotional connection, tying in that story. Now I have to say I used AI for this. I took Ben's likeness, image and likeness, and I made this picture. But you guys can do the same thing, get actual pictures. But this is what I talk about in telling the story. Leading, it doesn't matter where you are in the organization. This is part of his day-to-day. All right, let's go to public speaking. So here's Ben giving a keynote speech, excuse me. I'm going to put up the speech outline that I mocked up. And I want you to guess who is the audience, kind of going back, who is this for? What is this for? Who would you think the audience is for this, just based on the headlines?
Executives.
Yeah, senior management.
Exactly. And what's important to them?
Money and liability.
ROL.
That's right. Yeah. And here's Ben sort of changing that framing of safety is seen as a cost. No, it's not a cost. It's a business driver. And then sharing with them as a leader in this space, putting himself in their shoes. What do you wish they would know that you know? And again, does he have to be a senior executive or a manager to put himself in this position of authority with them in a public speaking environment? No, he doesn't. But he has to know who his audience is. Who is it for? What is it for? What is the change he seeks to make? All right, and the last sample that I'll talk about today, the business memo. I'm talking about old school. I mean, this thing is a relic from the marketing perspective. I don't know if it really is a marketing tool, but it's a tool within business that could be used for marketing, for leading. I think today this is the $1 million idea. I hope to God one of you uses it and then emails me in a few months to tell me about it and the remarkable results that you got spending exactly $0. And I'm gonna bring it to life in a bit, but I'll tell you where I got this idea. It was from a story that Seth Godin talks about from one of his earliest jobs, where he needed to recruit people into his division of a company, and he would put out a memo and talk about what they're doing, what they're building, how dynamic it is and invited people to join, and it worked. I did this in a way when I joined the NAOP programs committee. This is the committee that's in charge of putting on the monthly programs, bringing in speakers 8 times a year. This is one of, if not the biggest event that NAOP puts on. And I just started talking about the programs committee, and I started saying things like, it's the best committee on the history of the earth. And I kept saying it and saying things like that. And sure enough, people started joining this committee, and people I would never think we'd be able to get to join this committee started joining this committee and using their contacts to get speakers onto the stage, because I would just talk about the committee and how awesome it is. And the stats of it that people just kind of overlook, that every single month, 200 people within the commercial real estate development space. And it's not just people, it's the people that are actually building things and moving things and making things happen. They choose to be in that room at the Orleans Hotel. And our job as a programs committee is to deliver the best possible programs. In fact, we're creating the narrative. You know, there are 3 reporters in town between the RJ and the business press, etc., that publish real estate. And most of the time they get them from NAOP. Our job, we are creating the narrative. And I started talking like that. And sure enough, it became the best committee in the history of NAOP on planet Earth. But here's how you can use this tool, the business memo. Things that I would do within your organization, sending it to the clients, if you're a third-party safety provider, to your clients. I would define or establish a style and voice, and it should be your style and voice. It should be conversational. If you two were talking, if we were talking and you were sharing a story, how would you talk? Type it exactly as you talk, so that when I'm reading it in a way, it's almost like I can hear you speaking. That's a tactic. Tell winning stories. Look for them, document them, tell winning stories in these memos. Instill pride in your tribe. Exactly what I just talked about with NAOP. Who would think you can do this in a volunteer capacity in a committee? You can do this within your tribes, whoever your tribe is. If it's your employees, your teammates, your supervisors, the executives that hire you. Focus on the vision, not the rules. Whoops. Give positive shout outs. Call out people by name. And then make it elegant, make it stylish, make it vibrant. If you do this, I kind of think about what is the delivery process. So within an organization, like we still have mailboxes here that everyone has a mailbox. So for me, I would get this color green that you see, this font. This is our company color. I would get paper in that color green. I would probably print it in black and white font. And when I deliver my memo, I would put it in everybody's mailbox at the same time, so that when anybody comes and sees this mailbox, they're going to see this green radiating out of it. And over time, they're going to know it's one of these memos that is telling winning stories, making them feel proud, talking about vision, and giving positive shout outs. I'm talking about my team doing things that are wins within safety. And I'm calling them out by name. I'm making them feel good. And people will start to look for that because their name might be in it. And then they might share it with their spouses at home. Look what I did. Look how they called me out in a positive way. Another delivery method might be, when everyone goes home, I'd put it on their chair. So when they come in the next day, the first thing they see on their chair is this memo. If I'm mailing this out, snail mail, by the way, there's a big comeback because so much has gone digital. Snail mail that's personalized, that is thoughtful, not generic, thoughtful. So for example, if I'm a safety consultant and I have 3 resorts that are my clients, I'm sending this to everybody who's a stakeholder on a regular basis. And it'll say on there, "Dear Russell, let me tell you about a win we just accomplished together. And let me tell you what Johanna did on behalf of your organization and how she created enormous ROI for you." And I would get envelope and paper stock that is vibrant and stylish and elegant, so it's noticed. And how much would you think that this costs? Not a lot of money, if anything. So a couple of conclusions and we'll go into Q&A. I will tell you, don't buy into that narrative. Safety is valuable. It's up to you to lead, especially to lead with that. Tell your safety story. It is a worthy story to tell. All right, with that, ask me anything.
That's gosh, I mean, like, I think it's something that's so easy to, I'll just say in my practice, it's easy to forget, how powerful it is to call out the good stuff. We get this reputation of having it come down on things and ask people to do things differently and whatnot, but that can easily be counterbalanced by finding what is good and celebrating it.
Let me kind of go back to, you just made me think about, and bear with me as I go back to our favorite poster. Yeah, almost there. Here I am. This thing. So anytime someone goes to this poster on the site and puts a 1 and then moves it to a 2 and then a 3 and then maybe, I don't know, what's normal for this when you guys see this? How many days kind of before something happens? What would you say?
It kind of varies by industry. Some projects, so construction projects, they'll celebrate if they go a whole year. Casinos, hospitality. What do you think, Rick? Your guys' longest streak is a few months.
Yeah, without a lost time incident, and it's a little different in hospitality. I mean, we haven't really tracked it here at the Win, but we did it at MGM, and believe it or not, 30 days is 1 million work hours. So we actually went almost 90 days once.
So
that's
every
long time for hospitality.
So what I would challenge you is in what you just said, Russell, is like every day there's a winning story to be told. Every day you can calculate. Every day you can call out someone that did something to prevent or to avoid. And if you went 90 days and that's the high water mark, there were 90 stories in that you could pull out from. Why on this day was there nothing? Why tomorrow was there nothing? Why the next day was there nothing? And I mean, if you're not the ones that are celebrating, who's going to celebrate for you?
Yeah, great point.
Hey, Hayim, thank you for delivering the presentation. Really appreciate it. And one of the things you mentioned at the beginning was that you are a runner who might enjoy seeing this. I just pulled this off the wall of my son's home office where I am. He lives in Kona, or lived in Kona, and there's a race that he did a few years ago. So I don't know if you've ever been over to Kona and run, but it's quite the experience. We were there to cheer him on. Are you familiar with this?
Is that a triathlon?
Yeah, that's the Kona Ironman.
The Ironman. That's the most famous of the Ironman. So I'm not an Ironman. I don't think I will ever be one. I'm not so excited about swimming or cycling. Running, that is a serious accomplishment.
Well, I just thought that since you're talking about getting people's attention and you mentioned you were a marathon runner, I had to pull that off the wall to get to you. So awesome. What I wanted to talk about was the difference between broadcasting and communicating. The broadcasting, of course, is sending it out there. Communicating, or as we say in electronics, forward error correction, is knowing that your message was received by receiving some sort of response back that establishes that. So how do you know that we're paying attention today? And I don't know about the other folks, but I'll tell you, if you go back to your slides there, the one by Mr. Vinachuk there, you'll notice that one of the words in the middle that's spelled outer has 2 T's in it, O-U-T-T-E-R. You might want to edit that. So,
all right, thank you.
Proves that it was paying attention. Okay?
I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm not done. So we're going to pick on Ben here. So that page that you put up of Ben was dated June of 25. But did anybody notice that in citing the virtues of his CSP that it expired in 24, or that his CIH it expired in 23? Obviously, it wasn't updated, and I said, "Well, it's an old slide." No, it's not. The slide came out in 25. So Ben needs to update his page there. So just points. So that's my forward error correction. I'm proving that I listened to you, I paid attention to you, and I caught things that needed to be corrected. You follow what I'm saying?
I do. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Fun with the speaker.
So, Hayim, where do you, based on, I know you're not, I appreciate that you did research on, what we face as safety professionals. Just based on what you hear from, working alongside Ben and being a colleague of his, um, what do you think what do you think our greatest opportunity is to improve in safety messaging, kind of as an industry?
It's hard to narrow in like what is the one greatest, because you're all kind of in different spaces of safety.
Sure.
What the first thing that came to my mind is really just storytelling, because it's easy to take for granted. Like, the whole invisible thing, it's invisible until it's not. How do you make it visible when you're successful? For my industry, our property managers, God bless them, 99.999% of the time, if their phone rings, it's because something's going wrong and they need to fix it. And how often does someone call and say, hey, look at all the things that you did right, look at all the things that didn't occur because you were proactive. Look at how much money you saved on my striping because we got to it earlier before it went, got too damaged, and then it's triple the cost. It's like they don't know what they don't know. And I think that is probably more so in your space. They expect people not to get hurt. They expect safety to just be there until it's not there. And so they take for granted all the things that you bring to the table day in and day out for that expectation. It's hard. I know it's hard because it's like you're just doing your job, right? But at the same time, how do you communicate instead of broadcast?
No, I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Like what you said with the memos and stuff, and it kind of revigorated, because that's one of the things I've always tried to do in safety, and especially being in the casinos. There's so many people and there's so many executives. How do you get them to know what safety is? And it's really by that. And like what you just said, like for instance, most people don't know about eyewash stations. Like early in my career, I would just send it to those managers and those people doing it. But now, and I've kind of gotten out of that habit. And after this, I'm going to actually go back to that again, because I did it like when I first came to the win, but what it does is it creates, so I like for an eyewash station, all the executives don't need to see it, but when you send it out to their group, it just, like you said, it kind of, it's a positive way for them to see, hey, oh yeah, safety they do all these different things. And it creates that, like you said, that positive buzz instead of always the negative when things happen. So I love that point that you made.
That's an easy one. Yeah, it is. And it's not. It's a gift to remember to do it.
At the very beginning, you were talking about the fact that safety doesn't get any respect, and that when there's any sort of a crunch, that safety is the first to go. We just came here from a big air safety conference, our annual conference in Denver. And so one of the conversations, we were sitting around, and it was a comparison of what was the most demeaning way that you got let go from your job. This was a bunch of safety people. And so one of the fellows who was a professor for Embry-Riddle and dean of students, his retirement date came up while he was out on a recruiting trip, and all of a sudden his credit card stopped working. And so he had to pay for the rest of his trip. He's out there recruiting students and speakers and things like that. And he had to pay for it out of pocket. And they said, I'll get paid for it eventually, about 2 or 3 months down the road. And then another guy who was named Darren Gaines, who's an air traffic controller, got his notice when he was retiring that he was going to get a half a day off and come to the office of the management in the ATC facility. So he showed up. And there was an armed guard in there and some other people. And they said, all right, this is your retirement ceremony. Take your headset off. It's government issued, that you talk to the aircraft with. Slide it across the table. Now take your badge off, your facility badge. Slide that across the table. Now hand me your government ID card. says, okay, that's your retirement ceremony. You're now an undesirable person on government property, and the armed guard will escort you out to the curb. So this is after spending a morning being an air traffic controller, directing wide-body aircraft across the Atlantic Ocean and all that. And I said, well, hey, here's my story. I'm a FedEx International airline pilot, and all of a sudden my ID stopped working to get into the facility in Anchorage. And about a week or so later, I got a phone call from another pilot friend in Norfolk, Virginia, and he said, hey, I found the nameplate for your from your cubicle in the garbage can. Would you like it? I said, yeah, FedEx it to me. I'll pay you back. And so I've got it stuck on my little home office up in Alaska right now. So yeah, you're definitely disposable. If something happens, then that's the end of the show. So we have to do everything we can to convince the leadership that safety is important and that we do have a purpose in the world.
So you're a pilot?
I am. I'm a military and an airline pilot. Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I fly in the state part of the National Guard right now. And I've been in 4 branches of service. Russell,
Wow.
some of these guys know my background.
I have one question for Hayim. What made you get into with safety? What made you be interested in doing this type of presentation?
Ben asked. He's subscribed to my distribution for when I have a new podcast, and I put on there that I have enjoyed doing talks. These are some of the things that I can talk about. And if you're interested in bringing me into your organization, please let me know. And he read that and asked if I would consider coming and talking to you guys. And then we sat down and said, what would be of value? And knowing kind of the material that I can cover, feel comfortable covering, we came up with this. So the first part of my research was sitting down with Ben and said, so what would, from an industry perspective, what are you trying to solve? And then I just built off of that with some additional research on the safety industry. And admittedly, I know very little about it. I didn't know about total worker health, but did find it interesting that I know about other corporate initiatives. Never heard of that. Hard to find information on that.
No, I love that you led with that, because that's one of my little things that it's interesting that these big companies, we have, the diversity and inclusion and the community relations, which are all great things, yeah, let's volunteer and do things for the community, and they're all in the executive, operating committees, but then you don't have safety, which is, such a huge benefit to a company, and it makes you they have to see it. But
you think about the order of priority, the poster is safety first. That's the irony. If I don't have a safe work environment, I can't have a diversified work environment. That should be your new slogan for you have to have a safe environment to have a diverse environment. It's really interesting to get into just kind of the industry that I know very little about, and to, as an outsider, sort of validate some of the things that you're experiencing on the front lines.
Nice.
Well, thanks so much for coming in today. I've got a kind of a renewed roadmap for telling the right stories.
So my pleasure. I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
No worries.
Yeah, I agree. Great